The people of Silver Creek cheered before the gallows, believing that justice had finally been served. What they did not know was that the man beneath the noose was no ordinary criminal. He was the chief of the Apache, and if he fell, thousands of warriors would come to level the town. Welcome to Wild West storytelling. Let's get started. The town square of Silver Creek was packed shoulder to shoulder. Red dust swirled in the scorching heat. On a hastily built wooden scaffold stood an Apache man with long hair, sun-darkened skin, and both arms bound tightly behind his back. A coarse rope was drawn tight around his neck. His deep black eyes held an eerie calm. The townsfolk had no idea. The man they were about to hang was no ordinary prisoner. He was Natch, chief of the Apache. Below the scaffold, the crowd screamed in rage. Someone hurled a shattered bottle near the wooden steps. A widow shrieked, "Kill him! He murdered the Whitmore girl. Blood must be paid with blood." The roar surged like a crashing wave. No one questioned why the bloodied knife was mysteriously clean. No one wondered why Apache feathers were found exactly where the body lay. They just needed someone to blame, and they had their Apache standing right there in the crowd. Jonas Clay stood silently. The solitary man rarely cared about who the town chose to hang. But when his eyes accidentally locked onto the condemned man's face, something stirred deep inside. Those were not the eyes of a killer. They were the eyes of a leader, proud and calm, even in the face of death. On the edge of the square, Bentley, the notorious copper mine owner, stood with arms crossed, a cold smile curling at the corners of his mouth. No one knew he was the one pulling the strings behind this bloody show, and when the rope tightened, he would be the first to profit from the war that was about to erupt. "Thank you for allowing me the honor of being with you tonight. Let us know where you are tuning in from. Wherever you may be listening, I wish you peace and happiness." Jonas Clay leaned casually against a wooden post, his cold gray eyes watching the scene unfold. Folks called him the crazy cowboy, a man no one dared get too close to. 10 years ago, Jonas had been a frontier soldier. He had known many Apache chiefs, including Nash. He knew the silver-haired leader before him was no bloodthirsty savage. Despite what the people of Silver Creek were shouting, but saying that out loud now would be no different than slipping his own neck into the noose. Nash, leader of the Chiricahua Apache, was known for his calm wisdom. He had always tried to avoid conflict, had sent messages calling for peace talks, hoping to preserve the valley lands for his children and theirs. But the greed of white men was louder than any promise ever made. And now here he was, strung up like a murderer, paraded before the town for sport. In the distance, Bentley, the copper baron and richest man in the region, stood in the shadowed balcony of the Treasury building. His gray suit was pressed clean, his boots polished to a shine, his eyes cold as steel. The townspeople saw him as a savior, the man who brought jobs and prosperity to Silver Creek. But Jonas knew better. Bentley was a wolf dressed as a businessman. In his possession were mining maps showing rich veins of copper lying directly beneath Apache land. All he needed was a reason, an excuse to take it, and the death of the Whitmore girl was the spark he had been waiting for. Her body was found near the edge of Apache territory. Next to it, a freshly bloodied hunting knife and a few Apache feathers scattered on the ground. Too perfect. The kind of scene designed to lead to only one conclusion. The Apache killed her. No one asked why the knife looked unused, why the clues were so conveniently placed. In their anger, the town did not want the truth. They just wanted someone to blame. Jonas glanced toward Nash. The old chief stood tall, eyes forward, not begging, not pleading. That kind of posture belonged only to a leader. Jonas remembered the last time they met at the border. Nash had told him, "If you have any conscience left, hold on to it. Someday you will need it to save your own soul." Now, as he watched that man stand beneath the noose, Jonas felt his own conscience being pulled taut. Beyond the square, the vendors had fallen silent. All of Silver Creek had gathered, eager to witness justice for a red man. They had no idea the real killer was Bentley, still smiling coldly, and that this hanging was nothing more than one move in a grander game, a play to seize the Silver Valley for himself. The pounding of the drum echoed like hammer blows on a coffin. The hangman placed his thick hands on the lever, waiting only for the judge's nod to kick the platform out from under Naisha's feet. The crowd pressed in tighter, shouting themselves, "Horo! Kick the stool! Justice for the Whitmore girl!" The air was feverish with rage, so hot and heavy that no one noticed the sweltering sun burning down on their necks. One more breath and the rope would turn a tribal leader into a hanging corpse. In that sea of people, Jonas stood motionless, his gray eyes locked onto nature's face. The old chief stood proud, lips pressed together, his posture steady, not like a man about to die, but like someone quietly observing his own fate. In the moment their eyes met, Jonas saw something deep and endless. Not fear, not pleading, but a silent message. "You know I am innocent." Jonas froze inside. A voice rang out. "If you stay silent now, this valley will drown in blood. You will not only lose an old friend, you will lose your soul." Suddenly, Bentley stepped forward, voice ringing with authority. "People of Silver Creek, today we witness justice. The Whitmore girl has been avenged, and from now on, the Redskins will know this land belongs to us." The crowd erupted, stomping their boots like thunder. The hangman prepared to pull the lever. Jonas gripped his revolver. He hesitated for a heartbeat, but then came the memory. A house in flames. That night, his wife and son were killed in a senseless act of vengeance. He knew if the rope tightened around Naisha's neck, history would repeat itself. "Stop!" Jonas roared, his voice rough and cutting through the chaos like a whip. The entire square fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward him. The mad cattleman no one dared to cross. Jonas stepped out from the shadows, walking straight toward the gallows, hand resting on the Colt at his hip. "He did not kill the Whitmore girl," Jonas said firmly. "You've all been played. The knife wounds, the tracks, they were planted." The crowd burst into jeers. A few men began to surge forward, but Jonas drew his revolver like lightning and fired a single shot into the air. The crack of the gun exploded through the square, and silence dropped like a hammer. M lifted his head and looked at Jonas. For the first time, a flicker of hope sparked in the old man's eyes. Up on the balcony, Bentley's lips curled into a faint smile. He knew the game had just gotten a whole lot more interesting. Jonas's gunshot was still echoing when the square erupted into chaos. People screamed, some cursed. A few drunken farmers shouted, "This lunatic is defending the Redskins. Shoot them both." The deputy sheriff clenched his jaw and barked to the guards. "Take him down." But Jonas had already stepped up to the gallows, gun ready. His cold gray eyes scanned the crowd like a lone wolf holding back a pack of mad dogs. He growled, "Anyone takes another step, I will blow their damn head off." A heavy silence fell above them. The rope was still taut. Death only a lever pull away. Nietzsche tilted his head slightly, his lips pressed into a firm line. In a single glance between him and Jonas, an unspoken agreement passed. Jonas drew his knife. With one swift cut, the rope snapped. Nash dropped hard onto the wooden platform, coughing, his breath broken and shallow. The crowd roared, furious like animals robbed of their kill. "Theater!" Someone shouted, "Shoot him! Shoot them both!" Clicks of cocked guns rang out from every direction. Jonas yanked Nietzsche to his feet, shielding him and fired back. A bullet slammed into the platform just inches away. Wood dust flying everywhere. The crowd scattered in chaos. Jonas leapt off the gallows, dragging N behind him. He could hear his heart pounding like hooves. His black horse still tied near the saloon. Gritting his teeth, Jonas pulled Nash through a hail of stones and bullets. From the balcony, Bentley watched it all with cold amusement. He murmured to his aide, "Let him escape. The more chaos we have, the easier it will be to claim the land." Jonas and Nash finally reached the horse. It reared back, then galloped down the dusty main street. Bullets tore through the air behind them. Shouts chased them, but after a few turns, they vanished into the night on the town's edge. In the darkness of a narrow canyon, Jonas pulled the reins and stopped. Nash slid off the horse, collapsing to the ground, coughing violently. His trembling hands clutched the rope marks still red on his neck. Jonas knelt beside him and handed over a canteen. "Drink. Then tell me what the hell is going on." Nash took a long breath. His eyes still glowed in the shadows. His voice came hoarse. "This was a trap. I came to Silver Creek for peace talks, but someone killed the Whitmore girl and left Apache signs behind. They want blood. They want my people erased from this land." Jonas clenched his fists, eyes flaring with anger. He had suspected it, but hearing it from Nash drove the truth in like a knife to the chest. and in his mind he saw Bentley's cold smile. This game was far from over. Thank you for being here tonight. If this story stirred memories of the old days of dusty afternoons and the sound of hoofbeats echoing in your heart, I invite you to subscribe to my channel so each day we can sit together again and I will tell you another tale from the Wild West. Bad news travels faster than desert wind. Before the first light of dawn touched the horizon, horse traders along the border were already whispering. Chief Nate was hanged by the people of Silver Creek. No one mentioned he had been saved by Jonas. All they spoke of was the noose and the roaring crowd from the night before. That rumor carried by fire and smoke passed through canyons into every Apache camp. In less than a day, war flags rose high across the valley. Thousands of warriors painted their faces red. War drums thundered, horses screamed. Rage spread like wildfire, reaching every tent. To them, the death of their chief was the death of their very soul, and the people of Silver Creek would have to pay the price. Back in town, fear and hatred surged just as fast. The townsfolk built barricades out of wagon parts. Sandbags lined Main Street. Sharps rifles were handed out to every household. Church bells rang loud and fast, like the end of days had come. The deputy sheriff stood in the center of the square, yelling above the panic. The Redskins are coming. We must defend Silver Creek with our blood. This is our land, not theirs. The crowd roared again, but in many eyes, the fear was clear. They all knew once the Apache charged, the town would become a river of blood. In the dark canyon, Jonas and Nash sat by a small fire. Naisha's voice was low, his eyes fixed on the horizon where signal smoke curled upward. My people already believe I am dead. If they attack, it will not just be Silver Creek that suffers. Apache women and children will fall too. And that is exactly what the greedy ones want. Jonas nodded, his hand tightening on his gun. Bentley. He spat the name like something bitter. He planned it all. He killed the Whitmore girl, then framed your tribe. He wants war so the government can take the land and he'll buy it up for pennies. Nash was silent for a moment, then turned to Jonas. Then what will you do? Jonas took a deep breath. His eyes were cold as steel. I won't let history repeat itself. Not this time. Innocent blood won't be spilled just so one rich bastard can get richer. In the darkness, two men, an Apache chief who had survived the noose and a lone cowboy became the only ones who knew the truth. And now they would have to face not only the fury of a town and a tribe, but a wolf in a fine suit ready to devour the whole valley with bottomless greed. From far away, the Apache war drums pounded, and in the wind, the church bell tolled. War stood at the doorstep. Night fell heavy over Silver Creek. In the darkness, Jonas and Nagage crept silently toward Bentley's copper mine. The lights were still on. Figures moved busily, escorting heavy wooden crates down into the shafts. Jonas narrowed his eyes. The faint scent of gunpowder drifted on the wind, sending a chill down his spine. It's not just copper, he whispered. He's stockpiling weapons. Nagage nodded slowly, his weathered hand gripping his spear tightly. The rope marks still showed deep on his neck, but his eyes burned with fire. He knew only the truth could stop the blood tide rising toward his people. They crawled along the rocky ridge. Through a window, Jonas could see Bentley speaking with two government officials. A large map lay spread out on the table, red lines marking Apache territory. Bentley's voice echoed, "When the war begins, the government will seize the land, declare it abandoned. I meant then well bid on it, and that silver vein under the valley will be ours. Don't worry, a few corpses in Silver Creek is a small price to pay for a fortune." Jonas clenched his fists, blood rushing hot. He turned to N, eyes flaring. "Did you hear that? He killed the Whitmore girl to start all this, just to swallow up your land." Just then, a noise behind them. They spun around. A guard had spotted them. A gunshot cracked through the night. The bullet grazed Jonas's shoulder. Blood spraying. He fell back, but fired his Winchester as he hit the ground. The guard dropped, but the shot had already raised the alarm. Na pulled Jonas to his feet, and they ran, vanishing into the shadows of the forest. Lights flared behind them. Bentley's furious voice rung out. "Bring them back alive. Do not let that plan leak." There. As they fled, Jonas pulled a bundle of papers from his coat, the documents he had managed to grab from the table. Proof undeniable that Bentley had conspired with government men to steal Apache land. They took shelter in a rock cave. Jonas, breath ragged, shoulder bleeding, tossed the papers in front of Nash. This is the truth, but if we don't show it to both the tribe and the town, it's just a pile of worthless paper. Nash stared at the words, then slowly nodded. By tomorrow, Apache and Silver Creek will be at each other's throats. We must step forward before the blood spills. You and I will face them together. Jonas looked at him, conflict in his eyes. He knew he had stepped into the biggest game of his life. But if he turned back now, the valley would become a grave. The night wind howled through the canyon, carrying the distant beat of Apache war drums like thunder. By the flickering campfire, the shadows of two men burned against the stone wall. A lost cowboy and a nearly hanged chief, now allies in a battle to reveal the truth before the sun even rose. The valley outside Silver Creek thundered with the beat of Apache war drums. Thousands of warriors on horseback, faces painted red, spears raised high. From the town, church bells rang in alarm. Townspeople flooded into Main Street, clutching rifles to their chests. Two waves of fury, poised to crash and drown everything in between. On the balcony of the Treasury building, Bentley stood tall in a crisp gray suit. A cold smile curled on his lips. To him, this was nothing but a poker hand, and he was holding the winning cards. One gunshot, he thought, and the land will be mine. But before the storm could break, a lone rider galloped into the clearing between the two forces. Jonas, his coat dusty and blood-stained, sat firm atop a black horse. A bandage wrapped tightly over his wounded shoulder. Beside him, Nash rode a gray steed. The deep red noose marks still clear on his neck. They stopped where both sides could see them. A wave of shock rippled through the Apache ranks. Their chief was alive. Gasps rose from the town. The man they thought they'd hang now, sat proudly on horseback. Jonas raised the bundle of papers high above his head, his voice but strong. You've all been lied to. These are contracts between Bentley and government men. Plans to steal Apache land once war breaks out. He killed the Whitmore girl, planted fake evidence, and pushed all of us into the slaughter. The crowd stirred. Confusion swept through both sides, but Bentley roared from the balcony. You believe a madman and kill them now, he signaled. Dozens of rifles from his private guards leveled downward. But before a shot could be fired, Nash rose up in his saddle and tore his shirt open, revealing the brutal marks across his neck. His voice thundered like a storm. You call this justice? These marks are proof I was hanged for a lie. If my blood is spilled here today, it will not be for an innocent girl, but for the greed of a man who wants to devour this valley whole. Apache war cries erupted. Spears trembled in the air. The people of Silver Creek glanced at one another unsure. They could see it now. Those bruises were real. The truth stood naked before them. Bentley's face drained of color. He screamed in fury, "Shoot them! Shoot now!" Gunfire cracked. Smoke burst into the air. But this time, it was not between Apache and townsfolk. It was between Bentley's men and those who had finally seen the truth. Some townspeople turned their guns on Bentley's guards. A firefight exploded in the golden morning light. Jonas charged up the steps, firing round after round. One bullet struck Bentley in the shoulder. He stumbled back, papers scattering like leaves. Nash rode hard to shield Jonas, his spear striking down a rooftop shooter in one swift motion. Gunpowder smoke, screams, thundering hooves, and through it all, the truth finally broke free for all to see. Who had truly driven them into this river of blood? The sun rose over the ridge, casting a fiery glow across the valley, still thick with the smoke of gunfire. The battle was over. The bodies of Bentley's gunmen lay scattered across Main Street, blood soaking into the red dust. The townspeople of Silver Creek stood in stunned silence among broken bricks and shattered glass. The Apache warriors, still painted in red, sat quietly on horseback, not thirsting for more blood, but wide-eyed with the shock of how close they had all come to ruin. Bentley was dragged out in chains and thrown into the center of the square. He still tried to protest, his voice shrill. You need me. Without me, Silver Creek would starve. I brought jobs to this town. Jonas stepped forward, gripping his shoulder tightly. His voice was ice. You brought death, Bentley. The death of an innocent girl. The death that almost swallowed this town and this tribe whole. All for a damn silver vein. Nash walked forward. The red rope mark still ran deep across his neck, a stain that would never fade. He looked at Bentley for a long time, then turned to face the people of the town. You called me a murderer. You cheered when I stood under the noose. You wanted my blood to ease your fear. But now you see the truth. It was the greed of one of your own that nearly burned this valley to ash. The crowd lowered their heads. Some couldn't meet his eyes. The air grew heavy, as if all of Silver Creek realized they had cheered for an innocent man's death. Jonas lit a cigarette, took a long drag, and turned away. He never wanted to be a hero. He had simply stumbled into fate's game. But in those cold gray eyes, for the first time there was peace. Nash returned to his people. The Apache cheered at the sight of their chief alive, but he raised his hand to silence them. Peace is not a gift, he said. It is not mercy. It is a choice. And today, I choose to keep this land with truth, not blood. That afternoon, the barricades came down. The Apache rode back to the valley. The townspeople quietly swept the streets. No one spoke it aloud, but all knew it. Blind hatred and ignorance had nearly destroyed them. Jonas rode out of town at sunset. His shadow stretched long across the dusty road. He said no goodbyes. He did not look back, but from afar, Nash watched him go. His old warrior eyes full of quiet gratitude. In the wind of twilight, a voice whispered the story's end. In the West, the true enemy doesn't always come from the other side. Sometimes he wears a familiar face, a clean vest, and smiles like a friend. And justice, it doesn't always hang from a noose or sit behind a judge's bench. Sometimes it rests in the hand of the one brave enough to cut the rope. Out here in the West, they say justice hangs from the barrel of a gun or the knot of a rope. But the truth is far crueler. Justice is easily bent by greed. And when the truth is buried, one wrongful death can turn a whole town into a bloodbath. Nash didn't die under that noose. But the red scar across his neck will always remain. A reminder that what truly destroys a man isn't the bullet, but the blindness of letting others do the thinking for you. And sometimes to protect peace, you don't need an army. You don't need a judge. You just need one soul brave enough to speak truth. Even as the crowd screams for blood, it's been an honor to share this story with you tonight. If this tale stirred something in your heart, let me know in the comments. Type 1 if you enjoyed it and don't forget to subscribe channel for more thrilling Wild West stories still too.